Hi everyone, I'm Lockie, and about a week ago my life changed because a really amazing creature came into my life, and that creature is Sereno. I understand that there's a bunch of people who are following now because they're really interested in Sereno's journey. To do that justice, I am going to produce a series of videos on him, and for those who would like to get all the nitty-gritty details, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I'll be presenting this on Patreon, and I welcome you to consider supporting me there on Patreon. Before I get into explaining everything that went into the rehoming of Sereno, I thought I'd just give a really quick explanation again about who I am. I'm originally from Australia. I moved to Europe when I was 18. I live in Spain. Spain is my home. I have Samson, who is my heart horse. He is a 13-year-old Hispano-Breton gelding. I have 20-year-old Caleb, who is my COVID rescue horse. He is an Arabian cross. I have a 7-month-year-old American quarter horse colt named Anoki or Oki, who is currently growing up with his breeder and his mother. What you need to know about me is that I am a coach, I am a horse trainer, I am a hoof care provider, I am an educator. I'm really interested in giving people information, so that includes detail. I believe that the people who are interested in following what I do with horses are interested in concentrating and learning something new and hearing more detailed information. After all, how can we do better for our horses if we are not prepared to take in new information? So you may hear me explaining things in more detail than maybe you are used to when you consume especially free content on YouTube. I often talk about really difficult subjects around horses, and I try to do this in a supportive way. I don't always succeed. Sometimes I get it wrong too. I am a human being, and I am sometimes messy, and I sometimes make mistakes. So please forgive me if I ever do make those mistakes, but I always try to talk about these difficult subjects with the hope to help horses and to help change their quality of lives. Many of us feel that horses all over the world get a pretty rough deal in their lives, in their work, in their training, and I'm really interested in being one voice that helps to change that. And I have a whole bunch of friends who are also colleagues in the industry who are also changing it. So if you don't like my method or my way, get in touch. I'm really happy to connect you to a friend or a colleague of mine who might be a better match for you. So, some housekeeping out of the way, let's talk about Sereno's story. And if you're a horse person and you watch YouTube, eventually YouTube will show you one of Matt's videos. So I was aware of Sereno. I didn't watch all of Matt's videos. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a fan or a super fan, but I just sort of paid attention every now and then. But when I saw his video about the rehoming of Sereno, my heart really broke because I could see how difficult that was for him as a human being and as a, public figure to do that. And so I deeply respected his ability to let go. It's about saying, I'd love you to be with me, I want you with me, but that's not possible. So I release you, I let you go. And so I had enormous respect for Matt when he did this. But when I watched that video, a really funny sensation overcame my body. It was just like a voice in the back of my head said, "This is your horse." And so I sent a detailed email, which I believed was a professional application for the rehoming of a horse, with detailed information about who I am, where I've come from, what I do, and what I can offer this horse. Part of my brain said, you'll probably never hear from him. What is he interested in? Me, I'm a small-time horse trainer out in the middle of nowhere in the Spanish countryside with a dusty paddock and a couple of horses and a small group of really loyal clients. I'm in such a different world to where this horse is coming from. I never expected to be a serious candidate, but at the same time, a little voice in the back of my head said, "This is your horse, send the email." And so I sent the email. 3 weeks later, I had several emails from Matt and an Instagram message, and it said, "I need you to get in response to me right now. I have a number of people who are interested in this horse, but to be honest, you are my first choice, and I need to get a move on this." And I was technically on holiday, so it had been a couple of days since I had seen these emails. So I quickly jumped on my computer and I said, oh my God, he's gotten in contact with me. We spoke on the phone, 45 minutes to an hour. He asked me a whole bunch of really good questions. I asked him a bunch of questions, and we both agreed that I should fly up to Amsterdam to come and see this horse. And so I did. I flew up to Amsterdam. I was there for less than 24 hours. I hired a car and I drove out to Matt's stable. I found Matt to be incredibly friendly, incredibly professional, very respectful, and it was no surprise to me the amount of success he's had in his life and will continue to have because of the way he spoke to me and to his horses and to his friends and the people around him. I just found him to be super professional, friendly, and impressive. So that was really nice to see. And of course, no surprise, his horses, when I met them, Emporio and Etro, and of course Sereno, they seemed to be happy, emotionally balanced animals that engaged with people, and that was no surprise to me either. I have a lot of people that are really confused why someone like me is cooperating with, quote, a sport horse person. But the thing is, you don't have to agree with everything somebody does, but you have to agree on the most important things. And even though I don't keep my horses in a box stable, I keep them open in a natural environment as much as I can, we both agree that our horse's happiness is the most important thing. And often a stable is the right solution for certain animals, especially sport horses. I was given the opportunity, without being filmed and without any pressure, to spend some time with Sereno on my own. And so I was in his box. I just wanted to keep it really simple and just kind of map the contact this horse had with me. I actually filmed this session, and if you're watching this on YouTube, I will give you an abbreviated version of what happened during that 20 minutes. If you're watching this on Patreon, I'm just going to now show you the whole thing. So enjoy this first interaction with Sereno. So I'm going to talk you through what I'm doing here with Sereno, if I can, with the touch, intention, and tack rehab technique. And it's incredibly simple. Incredibly simple. We pare down all interactions with a horse to its most basic form, which is, how do you feel when I simply hold the tack that is on your body? Sort of mental, especially emotional, release toward the person and what they're doing. And that can look like 1,000 things. It can be a certain look towards me, it can be a certain kind of change in the body expression, it can be any kind of movement through the front of the body, which indicates a toning of the vagus nerve. And one of the things Matt told me about Sereno is that yes, he's nipping, it's stallionish behavior, and were he to be gelded, that this would go away. With him, it takes about a week for him to open up to people. And so this is the very first meeting. You can see here, I am holding a horse on his halter, and he's totally not doing anything about it. There's no response to me, nothing. And so that's a sign for me that this horse is going to take some time to connect. What many people do with horses when they meet them for the first time, especially highly trained horses like this, is they jump immediately into whole paragraphs of conversations with the horse. This horse doesn't have it with me yet. I simply touch it, I don't put any pressure on it, and I wait for any generalized softening. There, that was a softening. And then a nip, desperate to connect. Nip, desperate to connect. It's not biting, hey? It's not biting, and it's not aggressive. This is a stallion's version of a handshake. It's a stallion's version of hand communication. The horse has a prehensile lip, similar to an elephant or a tapir, and so it's one of their primary communication tools. So here I'm noticing his mouthy, so I've decided to engage it. So I'm taking the rope and I'm playing with it here, and I play with the lip, and if you're going to be mouthy, I'll go there with you. I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of your mouthiness, and in fact, I'll use it. Now he's pushing back into my hand, and he's wiggling with the lip. How beautiful, yes. I say, hey buddy, I'm not afraid of your mouthiness. I'm not bothered by it, but at the same time, I'll stop you from doing something that other people might be worried about, that might intimidate other people. You don't need to intimidate other people. People you don't know, we can be friendly to strangers. There, okay, let's replay that moment, because that was important. So you'll notice here, I reach forward, I just touch the halter, and I wait to see what he has to say about that. He goes from a freeze, watch this blink. Watch this blink. There. See how his whole body softened when he blinked like that? If you didn't see it, that's okay. That's why I'm showing it to you. Watch how his body and his expression softens now. There he softens. And even then he leaned in towards me and then mouthed me some more. It's the misdirected ability or desire to engage. Doesn't know how to engage softly with me. He knows how to do it with, lipping and mouthiness. But I'm showing him a different way that he can just blink and soften his body and relax, and he can engage with me that way. Watch. There, really important moment. You notice that I noticed that and I release. So emotional horsemanship at the very beginning is this tiny, this detail orientated. It is high time in this world of ours that we started focusing on little things as well. Turns inside his stable just to see if he'll follow the lead rope, and he does, and then he steps in and asks for a game again. How lovely. And this was probably the moment where I said, yeah, buddy, you're coming home with me. I think we can work through these things together. I think we'll be good friends. We're not friends yet, but we will be. I know we will be. And I'll offer you my heart, and I think you'll offer me mine. Offer me yours in return, and I'll never do wrong with it. We'll always be friends. And there's the nipping. That's the 5-year-old saying, do you see me? Do you hear me? Tug, tug, tap, tap, bang, bang. When someone taps you on a shoulder, you don't automatically think that's aggressive, though some people do. So again, I'm just seeing if he'll follow the lead rope, how he is to a really soft feel on the lead rope. Does he connect his nose to his rib cage when he turns, or is he turning like a plank? These are questions I'm asking myself as I do this. Of course, it's asking a lot of a horse to do such a tight turn, but the horses I work with and in the places I work them, they have absolutely no problem moving like this in tight places. And so again, I'm asking this horse to do a movement that he's typically not trained to do, so that I can see how his body responds in untrained moments. Because how his body responds in untrained moments tells me more about his soundness, about his behavioral history, and about his emotional availability than does trained and conditioned behaviors. So after this, we decided to go to the round pen with him, where I could do just a little bit of movement with him, considering he's had a history of suspensory ligament inflammation. I wanted to see how he was moving, and he was sound. He had shoes on, of course, and he's in soft footing. And in Spain, I will take him without shoes in hard footing, so I knew there would be an additional stressor placed upon him there. But he was moving sound. I could still see very privately and very personally my professional eye that looks at movement qualities at a very detailed level. Because I have a background as a professional ballet dancer, I have an eye for movement that a lot of lay people don't have. And so I could see that he had a compensation movement pattern around the injured leg. Even though he was now sound, I could see that the way he was moving, even though he is spectacular and beautifully talented in his movement and incredibly beautifully trained by Matt and his team and Alice Fromont, some of the nicest classical training available to a horse. He's beautifully trained, but that beautiful training and that talent underneath the surface at a very, very deep level, there can be tiny little signals of movement compensation. And I noticed this as I asked him to trot, as I would ask him to transition, little things here and there. There would be a jump into a trot transition rather than a smooth slide up into a trot transition. And there would be a lot of weight placed on the back of his knee on one side versus the other, and just little things here and there. A slight dropping just behind the withers each time he went into a trot, a slight extension through the spine as he was suspending in his trot. Very, very small things that most people wouldn't notice, but because I'm a movement weirdo, I noticed these things. He moved beautifully, he was sound, there wasn't a problem. It's not a problem, I just noticed these things. And so I had the ability to move him there, and I felt really comfortable about the whole situation. So Matt and I sat down. He had his best friend visiting at the time, so she was with us as well, and she was just a tremendously lovely person. Their deep respect and care that they have for their horses is unparalleled, so I have nothing but respect for them. And so we agreed, we made an arrangement, we agreed on a delivery date, roughly when that would happen. I didn't want Sereno to move in the middle of summer because it was the middle of summer when I was visiting. I thought it would be too hot for him in the south. So I wanted to remove him from the Netherlands back to Spain at the end of summer or early autumn. And so I'm going to America during September for clinics in America, so I needed to move him right before I went to America. And so we agreed. And that's the story how he came to me. So to finish this video, I'm including the live Zoom chat that Matt and I had a few weeks ago after everything had been decided. He and I actually managed to film something for my Patreon where he and I got into more detail about our mutual thoughts around Sereno's rehoming, and so I'm sharing them here with you. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching a really abbreviated or a shorter version of it. And if you're watching this on Patreon, you're going to see the whole thing.
Well, hello, Matt.
Okay, let me sit up. Hello.
It's nice to meet you. Well, we've already met in person, but
we have to do this properly now.
We have to do it properly and formally now. So you and I, we didn't know each other 2 months ago. We had never met. I mean, I knew of you, of course,
Correct.
because of your YouTube presence, but we didn't know each other. On the surface, we both have a lot in common. You grew up in Australia. I grew up in Australia. Well, you repatriated. I expatriated to Europe. This is our home. We're both super into horses. Both of us had sort of, well, you could say artistic careers. Yours was in modeling. Mine was in classical and modern stage dancing. And so when I saw your video about Sereno, I reached out to you, and it was totally a spontaneous decision on my behalf because I'm this guy in the backwaters somewhere, and who am I to take on this horse, right? That's what's going through my head, right? And I thought, no, I'm going to reach out because my first feeling was for this horse, I felt like this horse was potentially vulnerable in the wrong hands. And I think maybe you felt that too. I don't know. That this horse, if he got into the wrong hands, someone could get really overexcited about his size and his pedigree and all of this stuff. I mean, when I showed my vet his papers, my vet was like, excuse me, Lockie, like, who exactly is this horse you have just bought? Do you have any idea who his sire is in Spain? I was like, no, and I don't really care either. It's not really for me, but I reached out, and I reached out from the heart to make a really serious offer of a permanent home for him. And so when you got those emails, because I'm assuming you got a lot, what was that process like for you?
Yeah, well, it was tricky. So I got a lot of email. I'm still getting emails now because I obviously haven't said that he is sold, just because we're waiting to kind of do it the right way. But it was very difficult because there was people from all over that reached out. There was people from the Middle East, there was people from the USA, from Canada, from inside of Europe. So it became really difficult because all of a sudden I was inundated with so much choice that it actually made it really difficult to decipher through who seemed to be serious, which people, like, I could already hear through the tone of some people's emails that they were like just trying to get him and just make him a dressage horse again. Like, I could just kind of see through that, and that's not what I wanted for him. So there's definitely no way that I would have ever allowed for him to go into the wrong hands, because I mean, it's so clear sometimes by people's language what they intend to do with a horse and what their true intentions are. So there was a lot of that. So I think it was like 70% was that. And then the 30% that was left was really genuine people who kind of understood the situation and wanted to try and make it happen and make it work. But within that, I really took the time to understand the backstories of these people. So just like you, I had a lot of phone calls with others just to kind of try and understand them better. I think it's always better over the phone than on email. And kind of through that process, I found who I genuinely connected with and who I felt was going to give the home that would be best suited to him. Because I also want to make sure that whoever gets him is going to enjoy him, and there's going to be that kind of connection and understanding. And me knowing him is already bringing in kind of 50% of the relationship. So I was kind of trying to be a matchmaker at the same time as wanting a good home for him. So when I read your email and when I kind of talked to you on the phone and we kind of touched base, it was really funny because I was almost chasing you. I was like, hello, this horse, I really like you. And which is not quite expected. But that really was a sentiment to how much I kind of resonated with the email that you had sent, with what you had written down, with your plans for him. I kind of I stalked you a lot on your socials to get a better understanding of who you were and what you were doing. And I just felt like there was a really genuine kind of click there between you and Sereno. I feel like the goals could align really nicely and easily, and I feel like you could give him what he needed as well. And after talking to you, I was definitely reassured that that would be the case. So then it was just a matter of you kind of coming out, seeing him, kind of me seeing you with him, and kind of touching base on how we felt with that. And yeah, for me, it all went very well. But even just the time you took to write your email, it was very long. You kind of went into depth a lot about your background and what you do, and I kind of appreciated that you made the time to do that. It just showed how serious you were straight away.
Well, I'm also a really fast typer because I do a lot of writing. Because when you create online courses and when you deal with people online, and I've always been a fast typer, it doesn't take me hours to sort of spool out a big email like that, but everything I wrote was totally from the heart. And you're absolutely right. You did end up chasing me a little bit because I was technically like on holiday at the time. I'd taken my like 2-day summer holiday and I was like chilling in a hotel in Malaga with my partner. And then I had like these 3 emails and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm doing this, and changed my flights at the last minute, because I really feel like sometimes in life, you know, opportunities come by sometimes once in a lifetime. And I do feel like this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for me as a horseman to have access to a horse of his quality, and not only his quality, but his story and his background and what he can represent to the equestrian community is something that really aligns with my story as a horse person and as a human being. And I wanted to partake in that. And your story with Sereno and how you were looking for a happy ending, and with your background, I just thought if I could have a part to play in finding that conclusion, I would, because I really believe there's not enough happy endings in the equestrian industry, especially with the focus on sport horse welfare at the moment and what people are talking about. And I mean, I don't want you to rehash like the difficulties that you went through with Sereno, but if you could just dot point, you know, what you went through with Sereno in the 3 years you owned him, and why you came to the decision to rehome him, if you can.
Yeah. No, I don't mind doing it. I'm very transparent, so I really don't mind kind of sharing that and giving the background. So for me, I first met Sereno when I flew over to see him when he was for sale in Spain. He actually wasn't publicly for sale. The owners had reached out to me directly because they knew I was looking. So I flew over there. The first thing you kind of see is like this presence and this huge size that he has. He's a very, very sweet horse.
Dinosaur.
So I kind of straight away connected with him on that. And I rode, dinosaur, but like in the most beautiful,
sweet way,
sensitive way.
Yes.
Yeah. So I kind of connected with him on that straight away on the ground, and then I rode him and I really liked him. I could feel that there was a lot of work that had to be done, and he was being ridden in a way that was very different than how I rode. So I knew that there was work there to do, but he kind of won me over. And I was like, okay, I think this is going to be a horse that I can have a lot of fun with, and that hopefully he can really enjoy the ride as well. I kind of wanted him to get those, like figure out those puzzles, feel good about himself, get stronger in the body, and kind of be able to trust his body more. And so when we brought him home, we started to really develop him and do that, and everything was going really well. With Sereno, we did find that, and I don't want to blame the previous owners, but I don't know where it's come from, but he does have like little psychological blocks. So that's something that I started dealing with kind of straight away. It was never like a hurdle we couldn't get over, but it was something that we started managing from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it came up immediately. And I always say to someone, when you buy a horse, the first 3 months are like the worst months you'll ever have with a horse, because it's full of miscommunication. You're just starting to understand each other, and it's just about
Pandora's
kind of getting
box.
through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so as we started to like understand each other and get better, we unfortunately had a injury. It was like an impact injury. He did it, we think, in the stable. We don't know how. He wasn't lame, but he had a large swelling, and cosmetically, it could be an issue as well down the line. Like it could be that the scar tissue was going to be really big or something like that. So we ended up having a very small surgery for him, which took obviously quite some time to recover from, as any surgery does. And I never like having horses under full anesthesia, but sometimes there's no kind of way around it. But the body just takes a long time to recover from these things. So once he recovered, we kind of rehabilitated him back. He was doing really good. He was actually doing better than before. And he was strong and he was happy. And then out of nowhere, we kind of got the big suspensory injury. And it was just like, we had a great ride the day before. He had a day off. And then I went to get him out of the stable the afternoon after he had the day off, and he could hardly like walk. And I was like, what's going on? Like, it was just so random. There was like no swelling, there was no heat. So we had the vet come out. They told us what happened. And so he had to have a very long box rest, because it was very important that he wasn't going to, make the injury worse. And I really hate it when horses have to be on box rest, especially a horse of his size. And he hated the box rest as well. And, he lost all the condition on the body. We weren't able to really work the mind or really do anything with him. So once we started working him, those little quirks that he had came back. We had to rebuild all of his strength, teach him again how to use his body. And this was a really long process, and it took a lot of work, and a lot of work from him as well. Then we started to get on the right path. I reached out to Alizé because I was like, okay, things are going good. I feel like we can make the next step. And I didn't want to make the next step with confusion. I wanted to kind of have a clear path in that as well. So I went to her because I knew that she has a holistic approach towards horses. She's very connected with them. She's very she works with like energy, and he's very sensitive. So I wanted to be able to start the big work with the tempi changes and the changes. And I wanted to improve the passage, but I didn't want to do it with pressure. I wanted to do it with kind of confidence. So I reached out to her. She was more than happy to take him on. And within a couple of days, she was already telling me oh, he's really opening up and he's doing really good. I kind of jumped there a bit. So we took him to Belgium to her to go into training. And then within a couple of days, she was already telling me, I'm feeling a lot of improvement. He's really opening up to us. And things were going really great. She started even riding on neck rope. She started doing some changes, and everything was working really, really well. And then the same thing kind of happened for her as she took him out of the field, and he was just lame in the trot. He wasn't lame in the walk. It wasn't as severe as last time, but he was just lame. And she's like, we have been really careful with him. They do a lot of we had so many physios out for him. They do daily massages there with machines. They're all over them full time. She's like, I just don't understand how this could have happened. And he seemed to have irritated the old injury once we looked into it with the vet again. And so the vet said, okay, we can do stem cell treatment to try and help the injury. He's going to need box rest. We're going to have to build him up again from scratch. And I just kind of went, how many times are we going to do this? Yeah. It's just kind of time to say, okay, we need a shift. Something has to give. And that was going to be my ego and goals and ambitions. And we were just going to have to kind of reassess what was going to be best for Sereno. And that was a really difficult kind of place to be, because it was 3 years of really hard work, and the whole team and everyone really trying their best to make it happen, and having really big highs and really big lows. So it felt really kind of almost uneventful that all of a sudden now we were just going to call it. But after having really sat on the idea of what was going to be right for him, what was going to be right for me, I just kind of came to the conclusion that maybe this horse is not suitable for the goal that I had. but that doesn't mean that he's not going to be suitable for the goal someone else has. And for me, it's very important that I'm very connected to my horses, that we're on the same page, that we're on the same team, that we have the same goals. And I don't own horses just to kind of like, I want to ride, I want to be competitive, I want to bring them to shows, I want to be able to do a lot of fun and cool and exciting things. And I don't want to do that if it's going to be not fair to them. So I just kind of thought, well, he can just sit in the field here with me, or he can go to someone that has a goal that they can both achieve together. They can both feel great on the journey getting to that goal, and they can both thrive. And I think I was telling you also, I think he's really a horse that needs that person to be like obsessed with him and driven and like be all over him.
No problem.
And that's when I kind of made the decision. And that's when I made the decision that I wanted to find that home for him.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, that's a lot more of a generous answer than
that was
I
a very
expected.
long-winded answer, but I think that gives some background.
No. You say long-winded, I say generous. I think that was a really generous answer. It's important because, I mean, you know, it's not just you and this horse. It's not just you, your family, and this horse. It's not just you, your team, your coaches, your friends, and this horse. There's also a community behind this horse. And I know maybe you're not thinking about them, you're thinking about his welfare and his well-being. That's just absolutely at the top of the list. But you know, it has to be said and just put on the table that there are a lot of people out there who have their hearts tied up with Sereno's journey, as well as they do with all of your horses. And you know, I can imagine
absolutely
it's a difficult decision for a private horse person to make a private decision about moving on a horse that no one ever hears about. That's hard enough. But then to do that in the public is even harder. And so I had such huge respect for you in that moment that you made that decision. Because one thing I really believe, and where a lot of people sometimes make a misunderstanding about love and attachment, is that love isn't about holding on to something. That's sometimes, not always, but sometimes that's the ego, like trapping something against you. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to say, I wish I could be with you. I wish we could do this together, but I can't. So I'm going to let you go. And I think that's really one of the most loving things you can do for a horse, is to realize absolutely selflessly that you're not the right home and that your goals aren't his goals, and to release him to be liberated in finding something even better than yourself. It's one of the most selfless and loving acts I believe a horse person can undertake. All right. Yeah. So I can.
Well, thank you so much for being the next caretaker for him. I really appreciate that. And I'm excited to still be a small part of his life and stay updated with how things are going. Maybe if I'm around your neighborhoods and wherever 100%. You guys end up, I can pop over and have a little visit. That would be really nice.
That is my hope as well. That's my sincere hope as well. I never want you to feel like you're not part of that picture. And, you know, I've been in situations where I've taken on horses from other people and the story wasn't positive. So I'm really eager to participate in a positive story here. And my hope is that when we settle long term, you're always welcome to come over and say hello to him and see him thriving on green pastures in a herd, and see the kind of training that we're doing, because it will be really different for him. But I'm confident it'll be really healthy for him too, a different pathway of training, and his hoof care journey as well, because he's going to go barefoot with me, and there's going to be a whole revolution below his knee as well, which will be really exciting to show, as it always is exciting anytime you transition a horse shod to barefoot, to show that transition. And, you know, I'm a one-man band. I'll be doing it all myself with me and my team. And I'm really looking forward to getting started this autumn. So, Matt, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to hit pause record on my end, and then I'm going to make you the host, and then you can click record on your end and do with me what you need to do. All right.
Perfect. Thanks. Let's do that then.
Yeah.